Right. Shiv, before I come to you and take a picture about what happens from here on now, just for our viewers' benefit, just explain to us how unprecedented it is, I mean, for the Navy Chief to resign.
Well, it's unprecedented in it's difficult to even exaggerate just what kind of a situation this really is, Shivani. We haven't seen a naval chief resign or a military chief resign for a very long time. The last time a naval chief was actually pushed out of service was Admiral Vishnu Bhagwat. And that was of course in the 1990s. At this point of time, a Navy chief actually taking the responsibility upon himself, for what's happening inside his force, basically demonstrates 2 or 3 things. One, that it has reached, it has basically reached a situation where the Navy chief feels that he has no more answers to give at this point of time and cannot justify being at the helm of the Indian Navy at this very grave period. Point number 2, the Ministry of Defence has already made very clear just how displeased and unhappy it is with the Indian Navy's leadership as a result of the adverse publicity the security establishment has been getting as a result of this spate of accidents. Number 3, we are also given to believe that there have been some personal issues. As a result of this spate of incidents, Shivani, the relationship between A.K. Antony, the Defence Minister, and the Navy Chief Admiral DK Joshi, now the former Naval Chief Admiral DK Joshi, has broken down. It has actually deteriorated as a result of these 2 men being put on the forefront of these accidents.
Right. Shiv, just hold your thought there. Uday Bhaskar, defence expert, is joining us over the phone line. Mr. Bhaskar, nearly unprecedented scenario here in the Navy where DK Joshi, the Navy Chief, has resigned on account of the endless mishaps that have been happening with Navy vessels. Your take on it first up.
It's indeed a very, very grave development, unprecedented. And yet I would say that at one level, it is also in keeping with the highest traditions of the service, where the top man, the old man as the naval chief is often referred to, has taken the moral responsibility. Now, I'm sure there will be lots of debates and many views about whether or not he should have done this. But now that the die has been cast and he has submitted his resignation, and I gather the government has accepted it, I think this is a demonstration of responsibility, institutional responsibility by the Admiral, who is at the top of the hierarchy of the Navy. It is unfortunate that going back to the Sindhu Rakshak incident of August last year to the Sindhu Ratna, the Navy has been dealing with a number of challenges in terms of operational incidents. Now, personally, as I said, one could make a case to say that each of these incidents/accidents has a certain context. But concurrently, there has been a perception that has been created. And clearly, Admiral Joshi felt it necessary to take this step. And I just wanted to add, saying that when I look back over the last 50 years, perhaps after Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, when he was the railway minister, and he resigned in the wake of a major train accident, we do not have any such precedent, particularly in the military. And I think Admiral Joshi's step of accepting moral responsibility has many lessons as far as the larger Indian institutional framework is concerned.
Right, we don't often see a lot of resignations from people in position of power. This is really an unprecedented development, as both Shiv Arur and Uday Bhaskar are explaining. Mr. Bhaskar, what should be the government's response in such a situation? Because this is a very sensitive scenario.
It is, and frankly, at this stage, as I said, we are all absorbing the enormity of the developments over the last few minutes. But the fact that the government also has accepted the resignation as swiftly as it has, perhaps also merits a certain degree of reflection. There would have been, I imagine, some very detailed deliberations within the government all the way up to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet Committee on Security. But there is clearly, I think, a certain contour to the entire sequence of developments, and the swiftness with which a service chief in India has submitted his resignation by accepting moral responsibility, and the fact that the political establishment found it fit to accept it. I think there is a lot here that would have to be pondered over. But at this point, I think, as I said, Admiral Joshi's decision to me as a sailor is something that is in keeping with the highest traditions, that the man on top takes responsibility for any inadequacy. And this is a service tradition that where there is a success, you ascribe it to your subordinates and your juniors, and where there is a lapse or a failing, that the man on top takes it on the chin. Regrettably, we have not had such a display of conviction and assuming and taking responsibility. And I think Admiral Joshi will be remembered for what he has done.
Floor audio. Commodore Uday Bhaskar, just to tell our viewers who are joining us at this point, we have got information and it is confirmed now that the Navy Chief DK Joshi has resigned. There has been a lot of criticism. Were you expecting such a reaction from the Navy Chief?
I must confess that I am as surprised as I imagine most people in India are, because when the news came this afternoon about the Sindhu Ratna, there was a lot of anguish, a lot of dismay about the fact that the submarine had this accident. And at that time, the first concern was about the safety of the crew. It's very tragic that 2 officers are still unaccounted for, and we fear the worst. But clearly we have had what might be described as cascading developments, and I'm sure the Navy Chief, Admiral Joshi, must have been very anguished himself about this entire sequence from August last year to now. And as I said, I still maintain as an analyst that each of these incidents, which unfortunately have received undue focus, but each of them, I would say, has a certain context. And this is not my suggestion or my case at this point today to make any excuses for the service. That's not my responsibility, or it's not my mandate. But to say that the way in which the perception has been created perhaps may have led to the current situation. And I think the entire edifice, what I would call as the higher defense
Commodore Bhaskar, just stay on with us. Major General Thapliyal also joining us on the phone line. This is unprecedented. The first Navy Chief to resign, to quit from service. Clearly the circumstances were such that he felt he had to take responsibility with the kind of criticism that the Navy was facing.